Has said one of his top priorities in his new job is to end racial profiling by police officers. In that case, he might want to take a look at the off-duty police officers working for Dillards, one of America's biggest retail chains. Despite 340 stores in 29 states and sales of $8.5 billion a year, the company has recently lost millions of dollars in lawsuits. Lawsuits brought by shoppers claiming they were illegally harassed, beaten up, or thrown out of its stores by off-duty police officers working as security guards. And some of those allegations have come not just from the store's customers, but also from the officers themselves. Officers Greg Pell and Byron Pierce worked through the 90s as Dillard security guards in Overland Park, Kansas. They say Dillard staff pushed them to be too aggressive, especially toward Black and Latino customers.
Every call I responded to seemed to be on a person of color. And if we get there and find out that you just have a Black person in your area, well, is there a problem? Well, no, they're just here.
Are you talking about a few isolated incidents, or did this happen on a regular basis?
Oh, this was on a regular basis.
And they were always on African Americans?
The majority of them, they were without any foundation, without any merit.
Officer Pierce said he himself was the target of one of those security calls, when one Saturday, Dillards asked him to work in plain clothes. He was walking around the store in a baseball cap, white T-shirt, and blue sweats when a sales clerk phoned for help.
And the caller stated, there's a suspicious Black man walking around. He's wearing a red baseball cap, white T-shirt, and blue sweats. And it dawned on me, I said, well, you're talking to him, the security. She said, oh, I'm sorry. And she hung up the phone.
Had you done anything suspicious?
Just walking around. Actually working and walking around.
On duty?
On duty, that's correct.
Could they say that this represents just a few isolated incidents and involved just a few low-level salespeople? This is not Dillard's policy.
I don't think this is an isolated problem.
They didn't feel like they were wrong. I, in fact, informed them that one day you're going to stop the wrong person and you're going to get sued.
And they were. In 1997, a federal jury awarded more than $1 million to Paula Hampton, who claimed that a Dillard security guard in Overland Park targeted and harassed her because she was Black. After that verdict, the police chief in Overland Park, John Douglas, decided he had heard enough about what he called Dillard's bigoted atmosphere and banned his officers from working there. What was Dillard's response?
Their stand was they had done nothing wrong and that, the current safeguards that they had in place were sufficient.
Were you surprised at their response?
I was somewhat surprised.
Today, is this ban still in effect? I mean, can your officers work at Dillard's?
No, sir. It's still in effect.
Dillard's executives say they have an excellent record, just a handful of complaints among millions of customers each month. And they say their stores don't treat minorities any differently than anyone else. But recently, 7 Dillard's employees have testified their district manager, a man who supervised 13 stores, commonly referred to Black shoppers as niggers and jigaboos. And worse than that, some people say that the company's overly aggressive security guards have gone beyond insults to police brutality. On June 1st, 1994, Darryl Robinson approached the customer service counter at Dillard's in Houston, Texas. Witnesses say he was loud and abusive. Within minutes, store security guards had him on the floor in handcuffs. An hour later, he was in critical condition at a nearby hospital. 2 days later, he was dead. Robinson was supposed to have met his wife, Denise, after church that evening. To this day, she says no one has ever explained to her just what took place at Dillard's.
I would like to know the truth. What really happened that night from the time he walked in that door?
And what has Dillard said about this?
They've never talked to me. They haven't called me. I know the one time that I did go there, they said that our lawyers are now handling it and your lawyer can talk to my lawyer, but they basically just, showed me out the door.
According to hospital records, Robinson died with a brain injury due to lack of oxygen, as well as cracked ribs, a broken sternum, and bruises and lacerations on his face and body.
Why would they treat a person like this? Why were all these bruises? Why was the ribs broken? If all this force, was it necessary? Was all this force necessary?
What happened at Dillard's that night? James Turk and Anthony Pulsifer, who worked there as handymen, say they witnessed store security guards holding Darryl Robinson on the floor while a Dillard sales manager bound his legs with packing tape.
He was on his belly. He had his hands taped around his back. His legs were taped, and they were brought together like you'd hog-tie an animal.
So you had one officer pushing him down and two other officers pulling him in different directions.
He couldn't even move an inch.
And he's hogtied.
And he's hogtied.
Hogtying, a restraining technique shown in this police training tape, is forbidden by most police departments because it can cause a prisoner to suffocate.
When he started foaming out the mouth, and you could tell he was having a hard time breathing.
When the officers saw this, did they do anything to help it?
Well, one officer asked me to walk downstairs to get a mask to put over his face.
A mask?
Yes.
They wanted to put it over Darryl Robinson's face.
Right. The white stuff was coming out of his mouth. And she said, well, I don't want him spitting on me, so let me get a mask.
But in your written police statement, you didn't say anything about Darryl Robinson being hogtied. You didn't say anything about him foaming at the mouth. Why didn't you tell the police about that?
Really didn't want to get too involved. Didn't want to keep my job because it was real important to me at that time.
And I didn't want to get too involved with it because Dillards was wrong at that time.
Your feeling was if you spoke against them, what would happen?
I'd probably lose my job.
What made you feel that way?
Because the next day they was told us, hey, don't talk to nobody about this.
In fact, the officers who restrained Robinson didn't tell his family they'd hogtied him and put a mask on him until 3 years later when they were questioned under oath about it. What they did report was that Robinson was acting crazy in the store that night and that he fought them so hard they had to call on-duty police for help. The Harris County medical examiner never questioned the officers about their report and concluded Robinson died of natural causes, a heart attack. Denise Robinson never believed that.
We knew that it wasn't what they were saying, but it's what we had to go with because that's what was on the paper.
There's no doubt in your mind that he was killed by the police.
Yes.
Police who were working at Dillard's.
That's correct.
So if you were to talk to the head of Dillard's department stores about this, what would you say to him?
How could he let something like this go on in his stores?
There are enough complaints that have reached the public's attention around the country that the Dillards people ought to be embarrassed. They ought to be ashamed.
Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver, a Methodist minister, is the former mayor of Kansas City, Missouri. He says he heard complaints about Dillards for years, but didn't realize how widespread the problems were until 1997 when he raised the subject at a meeting of the National Conference of Black Mayors.
Lo and behold, one of the mayors stood up and said, I was roughed up in Dillards in Illinois. And when the other mayors heard that, one by one, they would say, well, I've never had any personal experience, but this happened in my town. I realized we had a national problem.
The Mayor's Conference passed a resolution criticizing what it calls Dillard's tight-lipped hostility towards serious allegations of racism and asking for a meeting with the company's executives. Dillard's never responded.
They will not reform. They don't believe they need to. They don't believe that anybody can force them to do so.
For 63 years, Dillard's department stores have been run by William Dillard and his sons in Little Rock, Arkansas. They declined our request for an interview, but they did send us this statement which reads in part, state laws permit a retail store to stop a person for investigation without proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Nevertheless, Dillard's realizes that honest mistakes can and do happen. For those rare mistakes, Dillard's apologizes and routinely offers gift certificates to demonstrate our sensitivity to this problem. But around the country, Dillard's continues to face claims that its stores harassed or abused persons of color, including 3 lawsuits filed in the last 2 years, lawsuits representing 23 people. And since Darryl Robinson's death, Dillard's security guards have shot and killed 3 shoplifters at their stores. Then there's the case of Ellie Montesinos. On New Year's Day 1997, Montesinos was shopping with his wife Susanna, their 3 young daughters and a niece, in San Antonio, Texas. They had only been in Dillard's a few minutes when they were told the store was closing and they would have to exit at the opposite end of the building. You wanted to go out the other exit because that's where your car was parked.
Yes.
As Ellie Montesinos passed through the exit, he cursed in front of the Dillard security guard, off-duty San Antonio police officer James Smith. Testifying in a videotaped deposition, Smith said he had no choice but to respond.
You violated the Penal Code Statute 4201, disorderly conduct.
So when he said this is bullshit, you're saying he violated the law?
Sure did.
According to Susanna Montesinos, Smith then pushed her husband through the doorway. Montesinos pushed him back, and then she says Smith backed her husband into a corner and put him in a chokehold.
And then Smith took the other hand like this.
So he had his one arm around your husband's neck,
Yes.
and with his other hand was pulling that arm?
Yes. And I screaming, my daughters too. And I saw he cannot breathe. And they don't help him.
Ellie Montesinos collapsed there in front of his family and died 6 days later. But Dillards maintains Smith was only doing his duty. Dillard says that they're certain that Officer Smith did nothing wrong.
He killed my husband. That is wrong.
He says he was just defending himself.
Defended for what? For talking?
Smith says he never touched Montesinos' neck, that in fact, Montesinos put him in a chokehold and beat him with his own baton. But medical records show that Montesinos died with hemorrhages and fractures in his throat due to compression of the neck, while Smith left the scene with barely a mark on him.
Do you have any regrets at all concerning anything that you did on January the 1st?
No, sir.
You don't feel there's any part of your conduct that you would in any way change?
No, sir.
Although a grand jury decided not to bring criminal charges against Smith, Dillard settled a lawsuit with Susanna Montesinos for more than $1 million after 11 witnesses supported her side of the story. But in Houston, Denise Robinson is still fighting Dillards in a lawsuit she filed after her husband Darryl died. For 7 years, the company argued that Robinson's autopsy report proves he died from a heart attack and not from anything Dillard's security guards did to him. But when we called the Harris County Medical Examiner's office, they told us Robinson's original autopsy report was wrong. In 1998, a new chief coroner determined that Robinson had been asphyxiated while he was being restrained. That coroner says she told Dillard's attorneys about her new autopsy findings nearly 3 years ago. But Dillard's never told Denise Robinson about them.
This is the first I've heard of it.
So no one contacted you to say that your husband was actually asphyxiated and did not die of a heart attack?
No.
Denise Robinson is scheduled to go to trial against Dillards the first week in April. Meanwhile, the U.S. Justice Department has decided not to pursue federal charges against Officer John Smith for the death of Ellie Montesinos. And in response to complaints, Dillard's executives say they have a new training tape for their employees, which they say should discourage racial profiling in their stores.
Strike, my man. This is a new day, Strike. Thinking's out, booty in, law and order, cut the budget, party's over. Crackdown on drugs, crime, niggas, spics, homeless, Ouija men, African Americans. Have a seat. So what's up?
Not a thing, detective.
Detective? Call me JoJo. You like basketball?
Nah, I don't like sports.
What do you like?
Trains.
Choo-choo trains? You can't dunk a basketball?
Nah.
Nah. Get the fuck out of here, man. You've been slamming before you was crawling.
We got you now, nigga.
This nigga's got a gold watch. You stole this, didn't you, boy? Wherever.
Are you crazy?
You're insane. You're all crazy.
Well, see?
Come on, man. Okay, look out. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. What are you doing to me?
Shut up, nigger!
I'm a white man. What the hell's the matter with you? I'm white.
You know what I'm saying? You on the corners and shit, you know, just gotta be on some hands down shit, you know what I mean? Just keeping your eyes and ears open at all times while we rhyme and shine. For my dedicated niggas who love this shit, we doing this like this. Word up, what's the phenomenon? Carry on, dog, tranquilizer. Hey yo, moving on these niggas like they yo, you know how we go, ship them out like Perico. Fine, proteges off top, connect and lock a building. $4 walla niggas building, saving the children. Come on now, check out the view like an ocean front. Slow motion and cunt, taking what we want, you know it, kid. Asiatic, holding power like a craftmatic. You like your fish fried or batter, that day he ratted. Check out the rubies from Guyana, just skiing in Atlanta, making some power moves out in Savannah. Yeah, rock them niggas like jury, Arabics moving blow like aerobics. That's when it slows it, shit. That means it's going effect. I'm hitting you, I'm hitting Buddha. Out in Bermuda, send that 20-shot Ruger. Continue to slamming menu like a venue. Get all up in you. Oh yeah, your friend too. Respect woo, yeah. Keep them faggot niggas watery. Rhyme for rich niggas who supported me. Shorty pussy extorted me. So it's the science now, RZA. Cutting they pockets like scissors. Cinderfella found him a Wally slipper. Splashing ends in the glass bins in Nevada. Flashing gems, 8.5 Tim's tape robber. All my life been on some foul shit besides kidnap a child shit. Get on some foul and proud shit. G and many Koreans being all that I could be in. Put down on 30 keys and get the fleeing. Light up a tree and don't be breezing like a blow dryer. Yo, you's a liar like Jeremiah gaming on the flyer. Yo, barbarian niggas is carrying. Thug drug marrying, hitting Marion or at the Clarion. All my Spanish niggas love us. We moving like Russia, bone crusher. At the flick stick to Usher. Broke niggas spot them like Cascade in the street. Masquerade, faster blade. Yo, hey, yo, grab